Hi there. Thank you for taking time to complete the online version of our Emergent Tree sessions in Schoology. So, this first session is going to go over the behavior matrix, which is something that you did complete at the very beginning of the school year. So, this training will hopefully help you to understand what the behavior matrix is and the reasoning behind it. Hopefully, you will know how to teach that behavior matrix to students explicitly and understand the next steps to addressing those behavioral challenges that go against our behavior matrix. So, these are just kind of the pieces that will go into this presentation. So, the first part is the actual going over of the behavior matrix. Then we will talk about direct instruction, why we should directly teach students about that behavior matrix. Then we'll talk about behavioral challenges, what they are, and what we can do about those behavior challenges. And then we'll kind of wrap up with some external resources for you. Okay, so Emergent Tree is where all of this is coming from. So just a little bit of background. This is the Emergent Tree tray of supports. So these are all identified components that make up a strong behavioral support system. So the piece that we're going to focus on today is actually going to be the skill building piece. And that is where we will get our behavioral matrix. So just to give you a little bit of background on what Emergent Tree is, Emergent Tree is a tier 1 behavioral support system, or the piece that we are utilizing right now is the tier 1. They do go to multiple tiers, but we're focusing on tier 1, which is just laying the foundation for students on how they need to conduct themselves appropriately at school. So this is really where students learn how to be a productive student. So giving them the specific guidelines on how to conduct themselves appropriately at school and what happens when they do not. So just to give you a little bit of connection, the Richardson ISD Code of Civility directly correlates to the Emergent Tree behavioral matrix. So this is what the school district adopted this school year, the 2024-2025 school year, as far as expectations for conduct within the district. They even break this conduct down into how they want specific groups to conduct themselves. So they break it down to student expectations and parent and other adult expectations on how they need to conduct themselves whenever they're within our school district. So this verbiage is all over the district, not only at the campus level, but beyond, where we are safe, respectful, and responsible. So, just to break it down to our level, at the campus level, this is what the behavior matrix looks like. So, at the very beginning of the school year, as a staff, you decided what the expectations should be for students in different scenarios throughout the school. So, safe, respectful, responsible was the verbiage that you utilized, and then you decided what do those three things look like. So, on the example on the screen, for hallways, students display safe behavior by keeping hands, feet, objects to themselves, walking with a purpose, talking with an indoor voice, and staying to the right side of the hallway. They demonstrate being respectful by responding to adults when addressed, following directions from adults, and being mindful of other space, and so on and so forth. At the very beginning of the school year, not only did teachers and staff members decide on what these behavioral expectations look like, but they also were to have given these expectations to students explicitly through a presentation. So let's talk about that direct instruction piece. Whenever it was the beginning of the school year, like I said, teachers were to have gone over the behavioral matrix with students, giving them the specific guidelines for different parts of the building and different scenarios in the building. There even should be a sign of those expectations within each classroom. Every teacher should have had their own posted up and gone over as far as their own specific expectations around the behavioral matrix. It is important that the students received that explicit instruction on the behavioral matrix because they don't necessarily always have that common sense that we think that they should. So, good places for us to revisit these expectations are after breaks. So, the winter break, fall break, spring break, even just a 1 day break. It's a good idea to go over those expectations around the holidays and around those slumps that come up during the year. So, like the October slump or the spring slump around March and April. Students do start to get a little bit lax and tend to forget that there are still expectations to be had. So, again, remember it's not always common sense to the students whenever it comes to how to conduct themselves properly behaviorally. And also think about the fact that our students do come from different walks of life. There's different cultures, experiences. Sometimes our students don't have the same developmental age and maturity as others. So keep that in mind when addressing any of those behaviors that students truly sometimes just don't know. Obviously, a lot of times they know, but there are times that they're unaware of what the expectations are. So when it comes to the direct instruction and addressing any sort of behavioral issues, make sure that you are asking the students to define each word within our behavioral matrix. So safe, respectful, responsible. They need to be able to articulate what those things mean and what those things look like, because there are some misconceptions around those three concepts. And so it's good to have the students go through it and for you to address any of those misconceptions. Also, having the students describe what that behavior looks like. So, again, in our matrix, we do give the descriptions that are very specific. So, keeping their hands to themselves, their feet, everything else. That is a specific description. So, having students, relay that information is a great way to make sure they understand. Telling the students what your specific expectations are around that behavior. So, sometimes we have slightly more specific expectations around those things. So, giving your students those in your own classroom. So, for example, in your classroom, it may look like being safe is putting your backpacks up at the front of the room whenever you walk in so that we have clear aisles to walk through. That's something that you'll want to go over with your students. Another thing that you could do as far as explicit instruction is have the students model those behaviors. So this is usually something that you would do at the beginning of the school year, of having them model what it is to be safe, what it is to be respectful, voice levels of 0 through 4, things like that. But if you ever need to do a reset, it's a good idea to have the students do those examples and non-examples again. So, like I said, there are key points in the school year where you're going to want to revisit those expectations, especially because behavioral challenges do tend to spike at key points throughout the year, like after a break or during those slumps that we discussed. So, the behavioral challenges, they can be categorized into 4 categories based on Emergent Tree's framework. So there's major escalated, major crisis, minor non-disruptive, and minor disruptive. So just think of this as kind of a graph in which the bottom left corner is the least of our worries, and the top right corner is where things get very serious as far as behavioral challenges. So just kind of giving you some examples of what those behavioral challenges can look like. A non-disruptive minor behavior could be something like tipping back in a chair. And that'd be an example of a minor non-disruptive behavior that goes against safety. So you can address that behavior with a student by saying, hey, remember, in this school, we are safe, and tipping back in the chair could cause you to be unsafe. Using those same verbiage, it will help solidify and internalize those things for students. Let's see, shouting in class, it's still minor, but it is disruptive to others. So that's a case that you might want to actually address that whole class rather than walking over to the student and talking one-on-one. Major escalated. So that's when things start to get a little bit heated up. So things like hitting, that's whenever you might want to get admin involved. And it is extremely disruptive to either one other student or maybe even the whole class. Then you'll have major crisis. That is when things are as escalated as possible. There is a immediate and imminent danger. So things like if a student brandishes a weapon or any sort of illicit materials, or if they're leaving the school without permission, there is a threat to safety there. So just kind of looking at corrective responses, the flow chart of sorts to give you an idea of what to do when there is a disruptive behavior or a behavior that is of concern. So if it's minor, you can do things within your classroom like going and standing next to the student with proximity, giving them nonverbal cues. So if they're starting to talk or be chatty, maybe putting your finger to your lips to say, we're being quiet right now, or praising any of their peers who are exhibiting the behavior that you'd like. You can also help. If that doesn't improve, you can help them improve by reteaching the skill or performance that you want. So again, just going over that matrix of sorts with them again, or you can try a different response. So if proximity didn't work, then maybe having a short conversation one-on-one. And then, of course, as things continue, then we escalate from there. We might need to teach a lesson, seek support from a mentor, or other things. As far as major behavioral issues, we're going to talk a little bit more in private conversations, so taking them out of the situation, having them do a redo. So let's say, hey, you're currently hitting somebody. Let's not do that. Let's do a redo. A speak and spin, which is where you tell them what the expectation is, go around, and then come back and address, okay, I appreciate that you have improved your behavior. So you want to acknowledge correction to the desired behavior. So make sure that you're saying, yeah, I appreciate that you have improved. And then, of course, if it continues to escalate, you're going to need to involve admin, possible referrals, and then as it escalates, further steps might need to be taken. So that is the first part. So just talking about that behavioral matrix. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to email me. There is also an Emergent Tree foundational training that all staff should have access to. And that can be found within ClassLink under Emergent Tree. There is an app within ClassLink. Thank you.